Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, continue on with the definition. I'm going to say that given that we are at a place of work, the key measures to judge this by is how effectively work gets done, and how, in terms of productivity and in terms of cost, and in terms of enjoyment. I think there are, I'll go through 3 key reasons why workplaces should have no interior walls. The first one is increased productivity. With the absence of walls comes greater transparency. People are, I think transparency in and of itself is a good thing, and people are less likely to be doing things that they shouldn't do, be it surfing the web unnecessarily or anything else. One of the biggest reasons why it increases productivity, though, is improved communication. When there is a crisis or anything important, when you are around the people, your close colleagues, you do not need to wait for that email to pop up. You do not need to pick up the phone for the person who needs to be there. If something big is going on, you just know. And that is a critical reason why so many workplaces have converted to it. Similarly, you don't have to wait for your next update meeting with your manager and bucket all your items together to go with them for your next one-on-one meeting. You can just be, hey Jim, what about this? I was wondering, and you get the answer right away because they're sitting right next to you, and you can move on with your work, and you are able to greatly reduce the cycle time. And this has been backed up in studies where the average response time from a manager and colleagues are less than half the time in the open workspace environment versus a more enclosed environment. The communication part extends further though too. So I work in a workspace close proximity to my team, and I may overhear them talking about something, and they're debating the best way to do it. I have some additional context and be able to share that right away, and vice versa. So you get this added benefit of being able to hone in on things that you might otherwise not. Agile frameworks and 360 teams are huge right now in the industry, and there's a reason. You can go and get things done to completion much faster when you bring all the necessary people together. And it's, for anyone who's works in a corporation, you try to do a new initiative and engage IT who might sit in another building or another floor or even far away. The process of going through a change requirement, putting everything exactly, it's going to take months, whereas if you can just get everyone in the room talking together, you're going to be able to get things done and go week after week after week. So the second key reason why there should be no interior walls is it's more effective use of space. Walls take up space, and that costs money, especially in high-priced places like Toronto. You also have a lot more flexibility. You can rearrange to suit your needs, and those can change from month to month. Once you have interior walls in, you're stuck with what you have. And that might be okay for very static industries, but in the current times, needs can change very fast. And industries are disrupted. You can be growing very fast. You can want to reorganize. And what this allows you is you can put different things together. You can expand much more quickly. You can change things very quickly, which is going to ultimately help your company respond faster. The third reason why we should have no interior walls in workplaces is it's the right thing to do. It's more egalitarian. When taken to to the end that we were talking about in this debate, everyone, including the top, is in this environment as well. They become more accessible. No longer is the CEO or senior leader in this ivory tower. They have a connection to the front line. They can be passed going down the hall. People can get the input, and they're going to have a greater handle on what's actually going on in the company. It also lets light in. I don't know how many of you have had the experience of where all the offices are on the outside, but if you're one of the unlucky ones on the inside, it's not great it's not a great environment to be stuck sort of in that lightless environment. You think about how dead and low energy it is when you have, taking to its conclusion, you have these floor-to-ceiling walls, many offices, and the place is lifeless. And that's really a key point. When in the banking, you look at trading floors, and they are completely open concept. You have some very, very highly paid people there who earn millions of dollars, and it's because of that communication and improved productivity I mentioned earlier, but also because there's just an energy that permeates. And that really raises up the productivity. So you might say, well, you lose productivity because of distractions, but that really doesn't take into account just the fact that you're going a lot faster because of the energy in the room, the excitement that you're going to get in that open workspace. And that's why when you look at the companies that are fastest to market, that are doing the biggest innovation and have the highest market cap, the Facebooks, the Bloombergs, the places like the trading floors and newsrooms, they are all following this open concept, and that's why the open concept is the right way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, the government has you believe that, will have you believe rather, that workplaces should have no interior walls because, he says, there is increased productivity, that work can be effectively completed, that there's more effective use of space, and that it's more egalitarian and even more energized. Well, as far as increased productivity, if you put a bunch of millennials into an open space next to each other, they're going to be chit-chatting about everything except what they need to do for work. Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter are where they're at. And just like the water cooler used to be the old-fashioned way of chatting, now open concept means open for discussion, not necessarily work-related. So whether or not you think you're being productive as a company, they're going to try to get away with whatever they can to chat about whatever's on Facebook, or what's the newest thing out there in the Twitterverse. So that's one issue. Secondly, private discussions are no longer private. When you have a wall and a door, you have a space to communicate quietly. You have huddle rooms for small groups. The Prime Minister has you believe, well, all these good collaboration. You can have good collaboration between 4 or 5 people in a small space with chairs and a table, and you can discuss things on your own, away from the crowd, away from other distractions, which is a more effective way to deal with that. And as far as distractions and being more productive, there is such a thing as teleconferencing. So you can talk to your IT department over there by having a screen and bringing them in on video, or using the phone. Conference calls don't cost an arm and a leg like they did in the 70s. You can have 15 people all chit-chatting from around the world at a fraction of what it used to cost. That's still communication, it's still very open, and it still gives access to everybody in the industry, in the building, in the company. The more effective use of space. Well, buildings are buildings, and companies account for the space that they have. Corner offices were given to people who deserved corner offices because they worked for it. And that meant something special. You were the CEO, you were the CFO, the COO, a big manager, because you deserved it. So the concept of being more egalitarian, well, that's lovely in theory, but there does have to be somebody running the show. And he or she can talk to the people down on the ground, but somebody who has 30 years experience in an industry is often more likely to have more knowledge than a new graduate or somebody who can maybe Facebook and Twitter but can't tell you anything about the industry. Construction, for example. If you've been a drafts person, an AutoCAD person, you might be good at doing drawings, but you may have no clue what you're actually drawing. So somebody with more experience, who has his own office, where you can go to visit, or he can come and visit you, is an effective way of running a company as well. If you have to discipline an employee, if you are in a boardroom where you have to lay off some of your staff, you don't want that fluttering out over the little cubicle walls where, and I don't mean sealing the floor walls, but out there and saying, oh well, we've got to lay off that entire department or 15 people who have less experience than 10 years. How's that for productivity? Suddenly nobody in that department wants to work anymore because they're getting laid off or fired. So the issue is, what's an effective use of that space? It is there. And again, businesses have used their space to effect and to their benefit for decades. Those of you who will remember WKRP in Cincinnati will remember Les Nessman and his little taped office floor. Now that worked really well for him. He didn't have any walls, he just had tape on the floor. You actually had to knock on his door to get in. There was no door, but for him there was a door. And you didn't have access to him until he said you did. So, whether or not, there are no interior walls there. But my point is, Les was crazy. Do you want that kind of employee working at your company? Times 50. No. That's the kind of thing that brings companies under. So these are not effective ways of using the no-wall idea. The fact that people can still collaborate when there are walls, that people can still phone each other up, send an email, drop by an office, drop by somebody's desk, that's not lost when you have walls and doors. What it does, though, is it may require you to set up an actual formal meeting with somebody to say, can I come in? Are you busy? Because somebody might be busy. And you walking by and say, hey, by the way, can I do? And suddenly now they forget exactly what they were supposed to do, or they're on deadline and suddenly their manager's coming by going, where's the stuff? And it's like, oh, I forgot all about it because I got distracted by him or her or the ball game or whatever. So interior walls are beneficial and more productive for businesses. Energy comes from the staff that you have and the management who direct that staff. If you have good management who motivate their staff, who give them an opportunity to perform and give them the benefit of better pay or perks, then there's no stopping them from being good employees. Whether or not you have walls is irrelevant. And in fact, not having walls may actually put up a wall to more productive employees and a better company in the end.
Julia, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well,
So we've heard the arguments from the opposition. They say that the whole thing is open for discussion, that the offices keep you free from distraction, that they provide incentives, and we have a need for privacy and so forth. So pretty much what we'd expect in a closed-in environment. The truth of the matter is that walls fragment the workforce. They divorce workers from each other. Now, people need people, just as they need them socially, they need them domestically, and they need them occupationally. We need to be in touch with our fellow workers. We need to see them, we need to hear them, and so forth. And even when we're not talking to them directly, we need to hear the background, the quiet hum. There's no distraction there. When you look at things like, say, for example, newsrooms, newspapers, for example, there are typewriters clicking, there's phones going, but one gets used to it. It's not a distraction, it's the pleasant hum of humans working, and it's a gratifying and reassuring atmosphere. If we divorce people from each other, a kind of loneliness sets in, and it's the same thing that exists in domestic life. For example, we're told these days that people who live alone can have a life expectancy much less than people who are married, regardless of the state of their marriage. So, isolation creates depression. Why do you think, for example, that in prisons, one of the most horrifying punishments is solitary confinement? Separating people and fragmenting them from their work can in no way bestow any kind of a sense of collegiality or anything else in the workplace. So, on the one hand, fragmentation divorces us from our fellows, and on the other hand, collegiality brings us together. The second thing about office space is that the hierarchies that are created, the leader of the opposition mentioned the corner office. And if you can't make the corner office, you want the exterior office. If you can't get the exterior office, you want the next best thing to where you're sharing it with somebody and so forth. So there is a terrible envy. Now that's fine for the winners, but the losers say, oh my God, look at these people. You know, they have this beautiful light coming in, they have the view of the outside, and here we are, a bunch of drones working in Dickensian conditions, and all because there are so few of them because the positions open are so few. So if you're a loser in that game, you have to put up with the shame and the indignity that it confers. On the other hand, an open space creates a sense of equality. We all have the same conditions, and we know very well in recent economic studies, what was it, Thomas Piketty's work on capitalism. He said, it's not so much the actual amount, it's the perception of where you are on the status, on the ladder. If the more of us who are alike, the happier we are. And that's exactly the case with workplaces too. So privilege creates envy and grudge. And finally, the open space creates ambience. It allows us to share the light, it allows us to share the views, even if it's an urban view or a rural view. It's a wonderful thing to be able to look out there and see the light of common day. There's a certain natural bestowing and natural legacy about that we share. So there is nothing in the argument of the opposition to suggest that these things are in any way diminished by having an open space. The office simply shuts us out, shuts out our workmates, shuts out the light, shuts out the quiet hum of activity in the background, all of the things that make life reassuring, that human touch, is all taken away by closed-in offices. So please, 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 please uphold the motion. Thank you very much.
I'd like to invite Julie up to stage as the member of the opposition to oppose the motion.
As the opposition side, I firmly hold that workplaces should have their walls. Firstly, let me respond to the points raised by the Prime Minister. Firstly, he argued that workplaces without walls have more transparency and facilitate communication. However, what's the purpose of setting up workplaces? Like the introducer of this debate have just argued, workplace is the place where you work. So therefore, as the Prime Minister also agreed, we should put work efficiency in the primary position as we consider whether the workplace should or should not have walls. The Prime Minister argues that rooms without walls facilitate communication. However, we also, in our work, we also need independent thinking in a quiet place in order to really do our work, to finish our work efficiently. For the sake of communication, we have various ways of communication if we really want to communicate for the purpose of work. For example, we can use the internet. We can chat on Facebook, not chat, we can communicate about our work on Facebook. We can work to others' offices, and we can also have conference rooms in which people can argue, can communicate, and then after they get others' ideas, and then they can go back to their private space and think independently. Wouldn't that be better? If we have walls, we can have both communication and independent thinking. But if we abolish walls, we only have communication, no independent thinking. Which one is better? And secondly, linking to my first point, that though it is easier to communicate in a room without wall, this kind of communication often leads to purposeless chatting and a lot of noise, which may cause people more depression. Think about it. If you sit in a room with everybody looking at you, with everyone around you, and with everyone chatting around you. For example, if a room have 30 people, like maybe 15, if 2 people are chatting, everybody else is going to hear them. And do they need to hear them? No. But their voice, their noise will annoy the other people, will affect their efficiency in working. And secondly, the second point of the Prime Minister is that by abolishing those walls, we can have more effective use of space. However, what's the purpose of the company renting the space? Is to spend the money and to reap the benefit. If the abolishment of walls actually lowers the efficiency of employees, then the company is going to reap less profit. Then what's the purpose of their spending the cost at all? So we should not only look at the cost side, we should also look at the profits. And since we all know the cost, what we earn and what we cost, minus what we cost is our profit. So actually, by using these walls, we can increase the efficiency of employee and therefore, in the long run, save money and heighten our efficiency. Thirdly, our Prime Minister argued that we'd better not be stuck in an enclosed and lifeless position, and we'd better have more energy in an open workroom. However, workplace is a place to work. We have place to socialize. We have place to be with our family, with our friends. But workplace is the place to work. Therefore, the efficiency of working is to be considered as most important. And secondly, in a place where we can work most efficiently, we are likely to save more time, finish our work quicker, and have more time to enjoy energetic activities with our family and friends. Let me use an analogy. Running provides energy, and it is generally considered as a good exercise. But would it be good if we run all day? Of course not. But workplace, for most of people, is where they will stay for from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock all day. Would you like to be in a place where all noise is around you for so many hours of your day? I'm sure you are not going to be willing to do that. And leading to my first important point, on work efficiency is that according is time. Thank you.
So thanks, Julie. So the second last speaker will be the leader of the opposition to give us 2 minutes as a summary of their position.
Mr. Speaker, the government will have you convinced, based on their logic, that workplaces should have no interior walls. That perhaps an 18th century one-room cabin is a better idea than a 21st century walled office space where people are able to work effectively, work efficiently, still communicate, and still be productive. We've stated that there are times when there is privacy necessary, either for your own personal work, discussions with other people either in small groups or in pairs or whatever it might be, or even in a boardroom, to get things accomplished, to move things forward in a business. And that's what walls allow. As my partner has stated, distractions are not productive. The issue is how can businesses best have their employees work productively. Walls allow phone calls to be conducted, conference calls to be conducted as well between other people in other locations, still working effectively, but getting things done without distracting others. Profit is important. Productivity, to give profit, is important, as we said. If you want to work outside and want work outside light, perhaps you should become a gardener or a lifeguard. The issue is, as my partner again said, you're at work to work. And if you're working in an office, you're there to work in an office. The space you are allotted is for your work. You can still collaborate with coworkers, with senior staff, with IT people, and it does not affect your productivity. Distracted conversations, however, do. Please vote against the motion.
Thank you, Dean. And to close the debate and sum up for the government, I'll invite Jonathan to come up.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So to sum up, the debate comes down to a few key issues. And they're the same ones that I outlined in the beginning. The first is productivity. The no interior walls allows the better communication. I went through some of the reasons. Everyone knows what's going on. It prevents needless emails, chats, updates to the manager. There's a reason why people still interact face-to-face, while you don't go to, don't try to build relationships over the phone. It's just simply not as effective. It costs less money. Companies aren't in the business of spending money for the purpose of spending money. They're in the purpose of spending the least possible money. It's important that workforces are agile, that we can respond to changing market conditions, and walls are very difficult to put up and down. If the team changes, the market changes, you cannot respond. We spoke a lot about it's ethically the right thing to do, it makes people happier. I hate to go to a party with the opposition who might say that 2 million people are looking at you, it's better to party by yourself. the people, more minds are greater than one. You don't get the best work just by yourself. You get the best work by bouncing ideas off each other, by bringing the collective knowledge to the end product. I think the point about millennials is ironic. It was mentioned that Facebook, people would never get anything done. Look at where the value has been created. Facebook is a $100 billion company. Silicon Valley all goes this way. It's not an 18th century log cabin, but a Frank Gehry designed 3,000-foot a masterpiece. It's, do you want to be the Yellow Pages of the world or the Facebook of the world? All the banks, another place where value is created, are all moving towards this model. So if you look at the ultimate goal of the workplace to make a profit, support the motion.
So, it is now time for the adjudication, and Jerry is going to have 7 minutes to give us a précis of the debate and how you felt it went. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
All right, very interesting debate. It's funny, nobody brought up the fact that